Hey, good morning. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Myra Ansari here for Wave Now with my co-anchor, John Boel, and we are not too far from Derby 150. I'm kind of getting nervous.
Nervous? Why?
Because there's so much to do. I did a lot of prep work over the weekend, but I think watching some of your upcoming stories will give folks a really interesting perspective on the past 150 years, some of the big memorable moments in our time here at the track and Derby history.
Yeah, so what I wanted to do was, Wave has been the Derby station since 1949, first television station to broadcast the Derby. And so we have this vast, amazing archive vault downstairs. Have you ever been down there and looked at it?
The basement, I'm kind of scared to go in there because
Well, it is
really
big.
like a dungeon.
It is big, cavernous, scary dungeon, yes. But so I went down there and I just started going through our old tapes, and it brought back a lot of memories. And then, of course, I've only been here since '88, so I went further and looked at some of the really old stuff. And I got the idea to do something similar to what I did 25 years ago for Derby 125, which is do a 10-part series. The thing I did 25 years ago was the greatest races. We assembled a panel of John Asher and Bill Doolittle and Ray Pollock, and we all kind of decided what the 10 greatest races were in the history, the 125-year history. This time I wanted to do a series kind of looking at special moments.
Okay.
And so that's what I did. And you're going to see Affirmed tonight. We're going to kick it off with the Affirmed, where a little kid named Stevie Cawthon, a little teenager, not only won the Derby, he won the Triple Crown in the greatest rivalry people still admit to this day, Affirmed versus Aladar in history. Look at him. There's a cocky little teenager. There was him after winning the Derby and up on the podium. But we're going to do way more than that. We're going to look at things like even the pandemic Derby. How weird that was.
Yeah, that was so weird.
We're going to look at the long shots like Mind That Bird, which is my favorite. I contend in the 150-year history of the Kentucky Derby, there's not been a greater story than Mind That Bird.
Okay, so I did get a sneak peek at that story that you did with Mind That Bird. And watching, again, Calvin Burrell's reaction to winning, I literally felt his emotion, had chills, had tears in my eyes to see how grateful he was to win that race.
Think about Calvin Burrell, one of the greatest Derby jockeys ever, right? He won 3 in a 4 or 5 year time span, yet no one would ever pick him. Like, he kept winning and couldn't get a mount for Derby the next year. People were like looking down their nose on him still. And so he gets in here on Mind That Bird, which the reason the story is so great is, you know, you got a trainer with a busted leg driving the horse all across the country, unloads him. Nobody gives him the time of day. He's got kind of an attitude about it. They start the race, and the horse is so far back, over 20 lengths back for the first half of the race. It's not even in the camera shots.
No, and to see that, to rewatch that, and to see how far back he was, how he just rode that rail all the way to the finish line. And I love the trainers. You pulled a lot of sound bites that he did with us and the network, and everybody was like, oh, that drive, that drive. And he's like, now you know who I am.
He got so sick of the storyline being reiterated on local and national television. We point that out in the story that when he finally wins, he says, they'll know who I am now, and walks away from the network interview. He was so mad about them continually harping on it. But to be fair, that's an incredible story.
It is. But, you know, I love how you brought so many aspects of our history, of all these memorable moments that, you know, we may have forgotten over the years. I forgot how amazing that race was with Mind That Bird. And to watch it again, it was like, oh, this is why this is the most exciting 2 minutes in sport.
And he won it by like 8 lengths. And the announcer didn't even see him coming and blew the call of the race. I mean, there's so many little subplots. But you bring up a good point. We forget so many things, like, you know, when Secretariat won the Triple Crown, and then 3 horses went on in the 70s, Secretariat, Affirmed, and Seattle Slew to win the Triple Crown. It kind of became old hat, but people forget it was 25 years before Secretariat won the Triple Crown. People didn't think anybody could win the Triple Crown. And then what I have experienced here, moving here in '88, was it was 37 years between the last Triple Crown and American Pharoah. And there were 13 different times in that 37-year span where a horse won the Derby and the Preakness and then blew it in the Belmont, sometimes in really heartbreakingly ways. So in the American Pharoah piece I do, for instance, I'm going to kind of get back into that reminder as to how close we came so many times. And people were literally lobbying for a format change in the Triple Crown because they didn't think we could do it anymore. And then boom, 2 more, right? Pharoah and Justify.
That was so exciting. So John's first piece is airing tonight at 6 here on Wave News. And we showed you a little clip of some of that archive footage that John was mentioning that he had to go dig up. And over the next few days, weeks leading into
the next 2 weeks, every weeknight at 6.
Okay, so you're going to get a little glimpse of the moments in history with Derby 150. Cannot believe it. We are just right around the corner. So John's going to be digging up some of that history, sharing it with you, and just reminding you why we are so special, why our area, Churchill Downs, the flavor, the feel, everything is just so magical.
You know, there's 100, I was just researching this, there's 100,000 foals born every year, thoroughbred foals born worldwide. And you only get to race this on your 3rd birthday, your 3rd year. So 100,000, only 20 step into that gate. That's a really special party. And then you never know what's going to happen on a given day. And you never know how the jockeys are going to perform. You never know how the trainers train. So you never know what's going to happen. Like tomorrow night's piece, the famous, we're going to go way back in history, back to 57, and Bill Shoemaker, one of the greatest jockeys of all time, misjudged the finish line, stood up too early, and lost, ended up losing the race because of that. Like, you never know. And that is what makes it the most exciting 2 minutes in sports.
Yeah, and I didn't even know about that story until I watched your story on that. And it's just like, the knife in the heart watching that. Like, oh my goodness, how did you misjudge that?
Well, it might have been a planted seed because the owner had a dream a couple of nights before the Derby that his rider misjudged the finish line and blew the race. And he told his trainer about this really weird dream I just had. And then the trainer told Bill Shoemaker, and Bill Shoemaker said, no, don't worry, I won't do something like that. But, you know, was it in his brain then leading him to stand up early?
Who knows? Okay, so I hope you can tell how excited I am about John's pieces because it really got me in the mood to learn.
Oh, it'll definitely get you in the Derby spirit.
And you know, I went back and I started researching John a little bit about the first Kentucky Derby race, learning about you know, the horse, the jockey, the story behind that. How many people were attending the first Derby in 1875? You know, and I've learned a lot just from looking into it. Just you triggered some of that drive to kind of look in and dig a little deeper and know about.
And sometimes, you know, when you research a story, you know, when you go on a story, you think you know where the story's going, and so many times the story leads you somewhere else, right? And you got to kind of go with it. That's what happened Wednesday night's piece on Pat Day, winning his only Kentucky Derby, all-time winningest rider, Pat Day at Churchill Downs, only wins 1 Derby. You're like, how can that happen? So I started researching that and found out he got 2nd place 3 straight years, 88, 89, and 90, before he ended up winning the Derby. So when I sat down with him to interview him at his house, the story ended up, the stuff he was telling me about all those near misses, those 3 in a row near misses, was really, really incredible. And that's kind of how that story is going to unfold on Wednesday. So you just never know.
You never know. All right. So you do know that John's story is airing tonight at 6 o'clock. So please join us. And he's also going to be with me here on Wave News at 3 o'clock in just a few minutes.
Yeah, we'll talk some more about it.
Talk some more. All right. Have a great day, everyone. And we'll see you later here on Wave News at 3 o'clock. Have a great day.